Okay, it's June 16th, 2019. Here we are again in Laurel, Maryland at the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory. This is where a lot of work was done for the Navy after World War II, and it was moved here in Laurel, Maryland. Laurel, Maryland, Fulton, the home of transport logistics. Not long after 1954, right in there. But the Navy was the key driving factor here, and this is research and development for defense, I should say. And if your program isn't in research and development, then you're not going to get into testing and production. And the goal of every weapons broker is to get into testing and production. A lot of missile work here, weapons of mass destruction, but also the satellite complexes here. This satellite here, this dish, 60 foot, put in 1961, talking to satellites. As a matter of fact, I think last year they just found a lost NASA satellite. It's gigantic, as you can see. And if you, one of the things they do here is cube satellites. The cube satellite was developed here. Now, if you might remember Imran Awan in 2011, starting a company right after the death of Osama bin Laden called Nanosat, sending terabytes of information to Pakistan. Was it to the Nanosat conference, which was a space conference that Suparko, the NASA of Pakistan, ran? Would this not be a good place to exfiltrate terabytes of information? Again, we don't know the terabytes, but we do know that Imran starts the company. And then he also has this New Dawn Corporation after Osama bin Laden dies. Were the Nanosats, these small cubic satellites that you could literally throw out of the space shuttle, which has also helped develop here, was that the technology they used to track down to the human level, not just the car level, not just the vehicle level, but down to the human level, using various different types of smart dust and so forth the Navy developed in Anacostia? Was that trialed? Was that developed in Pakistan, in the real world? Was the research and development here, and then was the testing actually to get Osama bin Laden? And when they got Osama bin Laden, now it's on to the next project. Now there's a new dawn. We don't know, but for some reason, about 8 days after Osama bin Laden is killed, he starts this company to commercialize this process. It's now been proven out, right, in testing. It's been proven out in a war zone, in actual applications. So we've gone from research, development now, to testing, to tracking bin Laden, and now we're ready to commercialize Nanosat. We don't know the answer to that, but we do know that they do CubeSats here. So it's worth exfiltrating terabytes of information here. So that is the background. A lot of people are saying, George, you're still talking about the Awans. What's going on? Well, I think it's key. There's some reason Deep State is not telling you what was transferred. There's terabytes of information, also hundreds of suspicious activity reports. There's got to be a reason. And again, proximity is not causation. I understand that, but you could barely fit a rock in between where transport logistics is located. Again, remember, they seem to be the Farsi transportation company, that same Farsi that Imran speaks, Urdu Farsi, that's covertly shipping all this stuff. Now, as far as to Iran, again, I'm not in a car dealership with a Hezbollah, a Hezbollah terrorist like Dr. Al-Attar. I'm not in a car dealership with Dr. Jafar. And in a Russia Sechin Gulf container deal that's shipping stuff to the UAE covertly. I'm not in any of those things, so it's not my fault. I didn't get in the car dealership in Falls Church. In the CIA car dealership, I didn't get in that car dealership with those guys. Imran Awan did, and that's why it's worth looking at. So anyway, the latest little piece of news that broke out is also, you remember Joe Schmitz being placed into the campaign. Blackwater Joe Schmitz, the kind of handmaiden, if you will, for Dick Cheney and George Bush. Remember his brother John Schmitz gets Bush Sr. out of Iran-Contra, very involved in Iran-Contra. So the same footprints of Iran-Contra are coming back to us now. Again, this satellite can tune to those very small cube satellites. This very large satellite here is very much married to those cube satellites. I just wanted to make sure that connection was known. But getting back to Joe Schmitz, you remember that Paul Wellen going to Russia with the big sword. He was giving out the big sword. Schmitz Sokaris law firm has this Knights of Malta 13th century sword as their logo. And they were giving every year this special employee of the year, not for their regular employees at Kelly Services, but just for the people in the diplomatic services, just for the people going to Russia, just for the people going overseas. And we talked about a few of the winners of that award, Paul Whelan's award. And Paul Whelan seems to show up in a lot of places where there's mass shootings also in the United States, like Aurora, Colorado. But we won't talk about that right now. We won't talk about his 3 different armories. Again, nice for bringing in weapons. If you have armories, nice for exporting weapons. If you have 3 different armories, one in Michigan, one in Florida, called Aquila. Remember, the transportation logistics ship is called Aquila as well, TLI Aquila, right? But getting back to Paul Whelan, he gives an award out to somebody in 2015. I think his name's Stephen Flynn. Is that, brass balls is out with that story today, is Stephen Flynn in fact the son of, the other son, not Michael Flynn Jr., but the other son of Michael Flynn? We think so, potentially, and that's significant. Because if he is, you got to think about the Green Zone phones, you got to think about Bijan Kian, you got to think about Bijan Kian's secret pipeline company, you got to think about Bijan Kian's loan to Silkway Airlines for shipping, for air freighting, covert weapon shipments. You got to think about Bijan Kian's loans to make a railroad between Kazakhstan and Iran. You got to think about his loans to make a pipeline, an oil and gas pipeline, potentially between the Iran and UAE and to Turkey. You have to think about all those investments and metadata. You have to think about Bijan Kian and Mike Flynn making all those nuclear presentations to the 6 Sunni nations of the Middle East. And we still don't know what involvement he had in the negotiations of the Iran nuclear deal. So again, people say there's no connection between Paul Whelan and anybody else. No connection to Joseph Schmitz. Well, of the early people that get put into the Trump campaign, Mike Flynn, Joe Schmitz, his law firm, connected to Paul Whelan, now giving Stephen Flynn an award. So